Hello YouTube, this is Matt Pullen, and I thought I would make a follow-up to my previous video, which featured a knight against a rook pawn. In that video, entitled The Awkward Knight Square, I talked about what happens when white's knight is on b2 and black has a passed a pawn. Well, here I've put the knight on a1. Now on a1, true, the knight is blockading the passed pawn. However, because the knight has so few squares available to it, it is helpless if the enemy king approaches. So whereas in the previous video I said a1 was not a bad square to have your knight on, well, it's not a very good square either, and I'll show you the ideal square in a little bit. So here white simply has no useful moves. Say he just makes a king move here. We're going to assume that white's king is far, far away, and then black, comes and approaches this guy. He's taking away the b2 and c2 squares, so he's going to come to b2 and a1 to execute this knight. And then the knight doesn't really have any useful moves because black's king would just take. So we've got this situation,
check,
and then black wins. So if white were to, I don't know, even if black were to come around this way,
check,
and white were to give check, this check doesn't help because white has to move his knight and he has to keep control over the a1 square, and he simply can't do it. So the only way in this scenario that white can draw is if his king is close to the opponent's king. So say it's white's move here, wants to play king f1, and then black approaches, white approaches. The goal is that whenever black takes this knight, white has to be able to play here, reach the c1 and c2 zone. And this actually inflicts stalemate on black, one of the rare situations in endgames where the superior side is actually the side being stalemated. So, in conclusion, if the knight is in the corner, a1, and the pawn has reached a2, then the only way that the knight can draw is, by participation from the defending king. The white king needs to be able to access the c2 and c1 squares at the moment where black is taking the knight. So again, let's put this king far away. And instead of having the knight on a1, I told you I would show you the ideal place to have this knight, right? The ideal place to have the knight against the outside rook pawn is on a2, where the pawn is blockaded 2 squares from promotion. And what is the difference between having the knight on a2 versus having it on a1? Well, on a2, the knight is able to establish this circuit of moves, and the black king is not able to attack the knight in a way that takes away both of the the next squares in the circuit. I mean, if the knight were in the corner like this, now the knight can also make a circuit. However, the problem with this circuit is that it's possible for the black king to sit on a square that takes away the next 2 squares in the circuit. So that is here the circuit is wider. And well, I will show you just how white draws. Once you're familiar with the ideas, it's quite simple. You just keep moving your knight, in a circle. whenever you're threatened, and always make sure that you're able to access one of these squares. So say, let's see, it's white's move. He doesn't have to play anything yet. So say the black king goes here. Well, the black king is taking away b4, so the other square in the circuit, c1, is where the knight needs to go. So if the black king goes here, then white is just going to play to a2 because the other square in the circuit, d3, is being taken away. So let's try this again. We're taking away c1, so the knight has to go to b4. Now we're taking away a2, so the knight has to go to d3. Now here, the white knight is not attacking a2, so there is an opportunity to push this pawn. However, white saves the game with this knight fork, followed by knight takes a2, and the game will be a draw. So black cannot push the pawn. He has to try and chase this knight away. But no matter which square black goes to chase this white knight, the white knight is going to be able to access either c1 or b4, which, you know, both defend the a2 square. So again, this is a position that you will want to memorize. You know, these 4 squares, if the white knight can get to any of these squares and the pawn is on a4 or a3, then the game will be a draw. Now there are some situations where, you know, say there's a black pawn on a5 and, you know, it's taking away the b4 square, and then the black knight's just going to come and, you know, gobble the knight. Now, but situations like this are few and far between. Again, if there's an advanced pawn and the knight's blockading it, keep in mind that the a2 square is the square that you'll want to be on with your knight. So thank you for watching YouTube. This has been another Endgame video where we've discussed some of the physics of advanced rook pawn versus knight.